Alright, how's it going? Good morning. So we're together for a short period of time, and what I didn't want to do is just cut a random haircut on somebody. I wanted to leave you with quite a lot of information in the short period of time that we have. I brought Erin along with me. Erin's an educator for me at the factory. What we're going to do today is we're going to do a series of different haircuts, very kind of popular haircuts right now. And what I'd like to do is to break down the simplicity of them and show you alternate versions, so you can see the difference between a layered bob and a bob with graduation, for example. And then what Erin's going to do, he's going to work on a few different variations of the graduated bob that might make it easier for you to approach instead of the traditional sense of how we learn to do it.
My goal talking to you guys is just to share with you and make things easier to understand. You know, if you're a behind the chair stylist, you're always up against the clock and you have to have things be efficient, so the more you understand it and the more you understand the fundamentals, the better off you'll be.
So I'm like a full-time teacher. I don't really do that many clients. I have like 5 or 6 that I do. But Erin's a full-time stylist as well that's wanted to become a full-time teacher as well at the same time. So he's been kind of working with me for the last couple of years, and we've been kind of bouncing this thing off each other, with him being a stylist and being able to take what I do and put it into a 45-minute or an hour slot, like instead of 3 hours what it would take me to explain it to you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to work on one of the most popular haircuts that are out there right now. Everybody in the convention center's got this, and it's a layered bob. It's the exercise of creating a line, a bob, right? And then layering that while controlling it. Layering is a removal of weight, so it makes the outline weaker immediately. And if you don't layer it in the right place, you'll lose the outline. So the exercise I want to show you is how to control that outline all the way through while we layer, and we get that very popular now kind of look. And then on this side, I'm going to put a line in, and then I'm going to graduate that line. I'm going to build weight. And the reason I want to show you this is because most people are going to go to the layer all the time. They see a tutorial online, and that's what they'll do always. But not everybody needs layers. Again, layering is a removal of weight. So what if you've got that client that's got fine hair and she has to have this style because everybody else has it, right? So you might want to shift your technique, instead of removing weight, to building weight. So that's what I'm going to show you. First up, I'm going to put the outline in. And it's very important to understand that putting an outline in is one of those things where you kind of have to refrain from doing things. We always want to touch the hair and pull the hair and be in full control over it and put a lot of tension into it. And to create the line, for me, it's the most simple thing. You just let the hair fall and you cut the line. You allow the hair to do what it wants to do, because it's going to do that when you're not with the hair.
I just want to show you guys a different way to approaching the graduated bob. Graduated bobs can be really scary for a number of reasons, especially if you're up against the clock. So, I think about the traditional way, or the way I was taught in the beginning, starting back below the occipital bone and working vertical sections, starting to pivot to create a weight line that extends through the front. Well, I think it's kind of scary to do it that way, especially, if you're not well-rounded in the graduated bob, because you're like, well, where is it going to end up? Clients usually point to a point in the front, like, oh, I want it to sit at my chin, I want it to sit below my chin. So it's really nice just to prioritize like what you want to see and put it in there right from the get-go. So what I've done is, below the occipital, I've sectioned all this hair away, and starting at the point that protrudes the most, I'm going to put that bob on first. And what I'm going to do is basically use this angle of my section to create the shape I want to see. I'm going to have that section stay consistent the whole way through, so if you can kind of see.
So you're going to build the house first before you put the foundation in?
Absolutely.
It's kind of cool.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk with my sections. I'm going to work right in front, and I'm going to use my finger angle to mirror what's going on with the section so that I maintain that shape that's pushing longer to the front. Sound good? Mm-hmm. Cool.
So I'm going to cut it at this neckline right here. Now I've taken a larger section than maybe what I was taught to do when I first started cutting hair. And the reason for that is it's a lot of common sense when I teach hair cutting. Think about it a little bit more. And when you take a smaller section, you have less density, therefore you have less weight on that section. And it's also a little bit more transparent, right? I would rather just wait until I have enough density and I can see basically it's much darker, right? Much more hair, and it's heavier. And that's how I'll start it. And I'll also saturate the hair with water over and over again because it adds weight to it and pulls it down. My body position, I'm going to stand directly in front of what I cut. And it's kind of like this. I use this analogy. It's like looking through a tube. What I don't want to do is I don't want to cut past what my eyes see, looking straight on. Because if I go past here, I don't know if my line is straight. I'm either going to go uphill or I may go downhill. So I allow the hair to fall. I comb it into place. I use the side of the comb that's got more space in it, so I'm not dragging the hair down so much with tension. It's very minimal tension. And then I won't go back to the root. I'll actually leave it. I'll come further down and just control the hair. And then I'll just tap above the comb. And it doesn't hurt to do it quite a few times because it's just releasing excess tension.
So I put my guide, hopefully you can see what's going on here, and I always like to just take a step back and see what it's looking like and imagine that line extending through and whether that's something I'm satisfied with, whether it's something we went over in the consultation with the client. So I'm happy with that, and now that I'm on my second section, I have some options of how high or how low I want to elevate it. The lower I hold it down, the heavier it's going to get to the top. The more I raise it, the lighter it's going to get to the top. So I want to create a pretty stacked, heavier type of shape. So I'm going to pull down. And what I'm looking for in my guide is like a solid line. If it's tattered and broken up, I might run into trouble and start cutting things that I'm not supposed to. And I'm just going to continue walking through and keeping that consistency of my section.
Again, it's the art of being in control and the art of simplicity, so trying not to do too much to it. So again, combing the hair into place, allowing it to be where it wants to be, and then going back a little bit more than halfway down so I don't pull on the hair so much. Again, stood directly in front of what I'm doing so I can see what that line is doing. Is it going up? Is it going down? Or is it level? Now, when it comes to like naming what's going on here, you'll hear a few different kind of terminologies. And a lot of people tend to call it square because I'm level to the ground. But a square has four corners. A square is a shape. It's not a line. A line is completely different. In all honesty, if we want to know what the shape of this is, it's whatever the hairline is. And it falls in a horseshoe, right? And that horseshoe can be level, it can get longer, it can get shorter, it can be zigzagged, it could be like a jack-o'-lantern's teeth. It just falls onto the line. As I move up the head, now it starts to become more challenging because now I'm moving through into the front. But I'm also in a different part of the head shape. The hair falls differently. Now it's actually crawling or it's laying over the head shape and then falling down. So I have to be really careful with what I do with this. If you kind of think of it like how water falls over a waterfall and how gravity pulls it down, I'm now directing this hair over here. So it's very important to look at it and see where it naturally wants to fall and leave it there. When I learned to cut hair, we all did this like tilt the head forward thing, right? Because I was taught that it was still very old school. I was in the mid-90s when I went there. And so you would put the head forward and what it would do would stretch out the skin so you got a nice surface to work on, right? But if you wanted to cut this line, which people call square, it's just level. So as I walk around, I'm getting into the front area. Right here, that's where the corner of the hairline is. It jumps up and works over the ear. So it becomes weaker, there's less density. So I'm actually just going to stop there. I'm not going to go all the way through. This is the troublesome area, isn't it? Where we get towards the ear and then we get this nice like wheel well. Right? So why would I risk doing that and making the mistake and then it's too late, I've got to come back here and make it shorter. So I'm just going to leave that and add more hair to it. Make it heavier.
So a couple things I really try and tune into and focus on is the size of my section, being in control, so taking very fine sections, because there's no room for error in graduation. You're really going to see the flaws. And trusting my fingers. So I'm trying to just simply get the guide as close to the edge of my fingers so that I can simply rest the blade. And there's no room for error. I'm not hovering and cutting out here. As long as I can clearly see the guide in my fingers, I'm just going to work through it like that. It just makes it easier for me.
I think what's important is you have to understand what graduation is and what its purpose is. A lot of people will avoid graduation because they don't know that and it becomes difficult. Graduation is a build-up of weight. It takes the weight from down here and pushes it up there, right? So graduation changes your face, it changes your head. Now, haircut is the distribution of weight, right? So what does weight do? This will narrow it down for you. You either get skinnier or you don't get skinnier, you get bigger, right? That's what you do to people when you cut hair, because you distribute weight around the head. So you make people's faces do this, and you make them do that, and elongate them. And that's what graduation does. It's kind of like plastic surgery. Layers goes with everything. But graduation is the opposite. It's that build-up of weight, so it becomes much more difficult to achieve. Anytime you construct something, you build something, it's way harder because you're working against gravity. It's easy to knock something down. Layers, in a sense, knocks things down. So again, I'm going even further, higher up the head, so it's crawling over this head shape even more, so making sure that I don't go crazy with the comb in this area. I just kind of let it be where it wants. I'm using the side of the comb that's got more space, so I'm not raking through the hair. And I come in about halfway down so I can just control the hair, place it in the comb, tap above the comb, and follow that line, trace that line. So coming into the area that's kind of the worst, trickiest area in the bob, isn't it funny how we start in the back, we get all the easy side part of it done, and then we get to the front and we do all the hard stuff. So combing it down again, tapping above the ear quite a lot. In fact, go crazy with that, because that just means you're protecting it. The quarantine at the door. Okay, so I put the outline in. And now I want to layer that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set up the haircut. Now the haircut, basically, I think of hairs out here, three-dimensional. I don't think of it just how it falls. If I can see what it's doing out here, I know how to construct the haircut. It's really simple. A haircut is basically a weird three-dimensional box. And it has, you know, similarities. That's how we create haircuts. It's very similar. So I'm in a room that's got three dimensions, right? So basically, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to create this wall. Now, it's very important, if you're going to be an architect, to understand the landscape. And I was very fortunate in my early years as a teacher, I got to experiment a lot. And experiment means a license to F up all the time, right? So let's identify those key points of the head shape. So if I move up from the hairline this way, I get to that first round of the head. Just put your comb on the head and you'll find it. It's that simple. That's the occipital ridge, right? Now that is in direct line with the same round of the head through here, which would be the apex, the frontal, right, Rich? And if I move out from the occipital, I get to the mastoid, right? If I move out from the apex, I get to the parietal, and they're directly linked as well.
Now that I've done the top and I'm working the back in, it's nice because I already have my guide in place. When I pull this out, I see a buildup of weight. So what I need to do is just continue that down. So what I need to do is angle my fingers in and actually create a V to the head shape so that it is in fact getting longer, or shorter, excuse me, shorter towards the base. And then another thing I need to focus on is to not over direct into my previous as I work my way around, because what will happen is it'll start to actually push and get longer this way. And if you think about the shape that we're trying to create, triangular, something that's short to long. So yeah, it's being mindful to not over direct and push, and it actually gives you some really nice options, because what will happen generally speaking, or what can happen, is if you're working the graduated bob the traditional way, you end up with a lot of weight in this area, in this corner. So this is really identifying that space and making you create what you want to see right from the get-go, just like how we did through the top.
I can cut it on the outside. If I cut on the inside, number one thing is they're flat on the inside, whereas they're more curved on the outside, right? So whatever I cut on the inside is going to be quite a flat line. So I may kind of start to create corners like a stop sign as I go through it, right? Also, naturally I want to pull the head down, so I'd have to tell myself to not pull the head down, pull it up. That's not really a natural movement, unless you're doing that. That is, right? So I'm going to choose to cut areas starting at that layer on the inside. So that's the water for me. I'm going to stay on this side so I can control it more. So my first section is in the center back. Once I get around into the sides where there's less density, I'm going to lose the length through here. I'm going to lose the density through there. So I'll go from being a layered bob to like a mullet layer. Right? That would be a mistake in this case, because that's not what I'm after. So I've got to think about, where do I get that guide to put me in a safe place? It's really simple. Just look where the hairline is and move back along the head. And it's quite cool because that is in direct line with the center of the occipital. Right? And generally is on most people. Its difference on people is the size of the occipital ridge. It's usually in the right place. Okay? So I'm going to use the length at the occipital or above as a guide so that I can keep and maintain enough strength and weight on my outline. I'm going to pull the hair straight back that way, and I'm going to elevate it straight out from the head. So the hair underneath the occipital I'm not concerned about. I'm just going to use that as the guide. And I'm going to cut a line that follows the curvature of the head shape. Therefore, it's going to be a convex layer. Just created this. So I know what's going on vertically in the haircut. Now I've got to figure out what I want to happen this way. How heavy do I want it to get towards the front?
Working on a client, I get weary about doing like one whole side, to put all this work into it just to find out that I was off. You know, you always have the human error element to it. So this is a tricky area, right, for all of us. You know, we kind of sometimes feel bad about inconveniencing our clients, like moving their heads around a bunch of different ways. To make it easier for me, my thumb is not doing this. This would be, it would be like impossible for me. So getting that dexterity down and maneuvering your blade so you can really get in those tight spots. One thing that was recommended to me like really early on in my career was when I would go home, they'd be like, just take your scissors with you and rest them on your hands, you know, move them around just so they feel like an extension of your arm, you know, so you feel a lot more comfortable in them. So basically what I was getting at is, you know, I did a couple sections through here, and what I'm looking for is it getting shorter in this way and pushing longer that way? And I was satisfied with the shape that it's creating. So rather than doing the whole thing, finding out later that I was off.
I think a lot of that, like this position versus this one, people love this. And you're coming in from the top, there's no shoulder or neck in the way. And you come to this, and automatically you feel that this elbow is heavier than this one, but it's not, it's the same. And you can't get into that region. And it's really kind of simple. It's all on how you hold the scissors. If you only hold the scissors one way, it means you can only play one chord on a guitar. Right? The scissors not even designed for you to put your finger through the hole, because if you do that, you only hold it one way. And if I'm trying to do what he's doing right now, with good graduation, and I have my hand like that, look at the position I have to get into to put my hand in. Do I look like I'm in control of anything? No, not at all. So it's all on how you hold it. So you take the foot thumb out of the hole, and then you've got all this leverage, and nothing's happening to the wrist. So then I can just get into here without doing all this weird stuff. Carpal tunnel. It follows the contour, vertical contour of the head shape. Now what you'll find is you'll see this shape done most commonly with a lot of point cutting and texture and stuff like that. So it really relies on your styling abilities to make it look like a layered bob instead of it just fluff, you know what I mean? A sense of building something. That's what I love about cutting hair, is that instant gratification of building something. I could never be a colorist. I don't want to wait to see if I messed it up. It's like cooking, you know what I mean?
One thing I wanted to mention about controlling the over-direction or lack of over-direction, if we wanted no over-direction with these vertical sections, is where this foot is placed. So if my foot stays in this corner, I'm probably going to have a tendency to pull everything over here, and it is going to get longer. So when I'm cutting, and even in the salon, I'm always looking down at my feet just to see if I'm in the right spot, double checking yourself. So as I was working to the center, each time, take a step. Because this feels natural, it comes right to where this foot is.
It's funny, I find that the more challenging, people think the more challenging side, when you're doing this fingertips down, I find that the easier side. Because I find when you're doing the fingertips pointed up, you're playing twister to actually come at that angle. You know what I mean? Whereas on this side, I would be right in there with it. So much easier. Instead of building with Lego, I now build with Duplo. You guys know what Duplo is? The bigger blocks for the littler kids. So I'm building the same structure, but without so much involved in it. I'm taking the superfluous, the unnecessary, so that we can get it on a schedule. And it's fun to do that. As you can see, I've controlled the outline all the way through. Triangular balance to it. It'll dry naturally, kind of how people wear it. These mannequins have that kind of texture.
Hopefully what I could kind of get across with approaching it this way is it takes a little bit of the guesswork out of what you want to create. You start with that first section and then you use your eyes to really visualize where it's going to end up. You have options with how exaggerated your angle is, what you want to see, what you want to create. If that took some of the guesswork out of it, this side will take all of the guesswork out of it, because we're just going to start right in the front. And that speaks to the clients that are like, I want something, to sit on my cheekbone. I want it to sit right on my jaw. Let's start right there.
It's really tricky to figure that out from back here behind this corner, right? To figure out where it's going to fall through here. So why don't we just do that part first? Then it's done.
Yeah.
Then the back's easy, it's cake.